Well, thank you guys and welcome to the Legal Table. I am your host, Crystal Jamerson, and I'm the Community Engagement and Outreach Coordinator for Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota. While we have some people coming in here, going to do a quick little survey here, if that's okay with you guys. So give me 1 second here. We're going to move on over to this and do some sharing. So I found this really cool app and it's called Menti. And so you're able to join in live. Not only can you join in live on chat, but we can also kind of see where everybody's coming from, which is really nice. It kind of lets us know what parts of the state that you're in. So you can feel free to use the QR code, or you can go on your desktop to www.menti.com. Use that code to get in. Alrighty, and once you're in there, it should direct you to answer our first question of what county are you coming from? So what's really nice about this is it kind of helps us to see, where there's a lot of questions. So feel free to answer that while we are getting some more people coming into the chat here. We just want to make sure that we know where everybody is. Ooh, Beltrami. Sounds good. Can you guys all see the screen? Perfect. All right. That's awesome. Okay, well, we do have some people flowing in here. It's exciting. And so what I wanted to do is just kind of, as that's kind of going through, I wanted to let you know we created the legal table to be able to educate you on rights and responsibilities, along with introduce you to community organizations that have resources to help you along the way. So today we're here to address third-party custody, youth and homelessness, and resources you can use to assist you while you're dealing with third-party custody. While talking with community partners, we have really seen a growing rate of youth in our area experience homelessness, and people in the community that are trying to help them, but don't always have the rights that they need to assist them further. So Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota is trying to make sure that the people in our 22 counties that we serve are aware of their rights and responsibilities and resources that are available. Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota, we serve 22 counties. We have 3 offices in the area where we assist clients in navigating the justice system and provide services for low-income individuals in the area with their civil legal needs. So we hope to bring you more information on civil law topics throughout the year. So make sure that you continue to join us and pass the information along to coworkers and clients. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and start, and I want to introduce our guests, and I apologize if I mess up people's names, so I'm going to introduce their first name and I'll let them introduce the rest of theirs. So we have Renee. She is Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota staff attorney. We have Amy, and she is from Moorhead Public Schools and is one of the homeless advocates in the school systems. And then also we have Mary Rhea, and she's from Legal Services State Support. So before we get started, I also do want to talk about a few house rules just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So please make sure to put all the questions in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So hopefully that'll help out everybody as we go. And also this is a short meeting, so if you would like more information, each panelist will have their information listed at the end for more info. This meeting will also be available on the YouTube channel by the end of the week. So if you have some coworkers that were unable to make it, you can definitely direct them to that. And that's about all that I have at this present time. So we are going to turn the mic over to Renee, and I'm going to stop sharing our responses.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right, Crystal? Okay.
I can.
I will try and speak loudly. And you'll have to forgive me if I have a coughing fit in the middle. I've been trying to recover from a cold for a couple of weeks. So I apologize if I do that. But as Crystal said, my name is Renee Sharon, and I'm the managing attorney of our Moorhead office branch. We do cover 22 counties, but I'm located at our Moorhead office. And as Crystal said, kind of the coverage of the topic today was listed as custody, but we've been having more and more clients and more people reach out to us saying, what do I do if I'm caring for a child that's not biologically mine? What can I do to assist them to be able to get things like medical and school support and those types of things? So I wanted to cover those today, and what most of the time that looks like in our office is third-party custody, but there's a wide range of things that can be done to assist these children. So, a lot of the common example that comes out is a grandparent, right? A grandparent who's caring for a child, their grandchild, because the parent is no longer able to. A lot of times that's because of a mental health issue or a chemical dependency issue. But I want to be clear that it's not only grandparents. It can be someone who's not biologically related to a child that they have found to be in their care, but grandparents does come up a lot. And a lot of things that come up too when this gets brought up to me as an issue is somebody will say, all right, I've been taking care of this child for some time. I think I need to get guardianship over them, right? Well, in Minnesota, guardianship is only appropriate as a legal action when the biological parents are no longer living. And so when it's not a guardianship, what do we do, right? So in these cases, like I said, it kind of runs on a spectrum from least restrictive and permanent to more restrictive and permanent. And when I describe this to people, I like to start with the least restrictive and move, up the chain to eventual third-party custody. So the first thing that I would suggest when people are looking into this is what's called a delegation of parental authority. And so this delegation of parental authority is a document that a parent can use to give their ability, so their own parental actions, to another for a shorter amount of time. So those forms can be used, and that delegation can be used for up to 1 year, but it can be a shorter period of time. It's not filed with the court. It's simply signed and notarized and given to those people that would need that authority. So that person is called the attorney in fact. And the attorney in fact can then make medical decisions, enroll in school. They can, say this person's out of school sick. They can act as that parent for that shorter amount of time. And these things are good even for those people, for example, that are going on an extended vacation, right? Like let's say you're going out of the country for 2 weeks and leaving your children with somebody else. If there were to be an emergency or something that were to happen while you were gone on vacation, that delegation of authority you could limit to that period of time. And that person would then have the ability to provide emergency medical care or deal with the school or things like that for that period of time. So try not to think of it just in a situation that's long-term. It also can be good for lots of different types of situations. Again, it's not filed with the court, and it's really parent-led. It's the parent giving the rights to somebody else. They can always override that attorney in fact's decision. They can always revoke it at any time. And so that keeps the most power with the parents, that delegation of parental authority. And the court doesn't know anything about it. It's really kind of situational for that one. So beyond a delegation of parental authority, if someone is looking for something slightly more permanent, something that is filed with the court, something that maybe carries a little bit more weight, for example, if the biological parent, is in a position where they're more agreeable some days than other days. Another option that's less common, but that I have done, is what's called a custody consent decree. So in a custody consent decree, again, the parent has to agree to that arrangement, but they can actually transfer legal and physical custody rather than just the powers to make decisions. So they can transfer legal and physical custody In Minnesota, obviously there's legal and physical custody. Legal custody is those major life decision things like religion, education, non-emergency medical care, those kind of big ticket items. That falls into the legal custody purview in Minnesota. Physical custody is more what the general population thinks custody is, where the child is living, who makes the day-to-day decisions, those kinds of things. And custody orders in Minnesota contain both of those pieces, both legal and physical custody. So once an agreement of this type is signed, it is filed with the court, and the court must determine that it's in the best interest of the child to enter this agreement and that all the parties understand. And it must include whether or not the agreement is temporary or permanent. It must note the specific rights that are given and the types of custody, and include an order for child support. Now, that doesn't mean that the parent, the biological parent, has to always have a child support order entered against them for a certain amount of money. You can agree to have it be reserved, which means decide that in the future. You can agree to a $0 amount. You can agree to a certain amount. Sometimes there's some intricacies if there's public benefits involved. But by and large, that child support piece can be up for discussion just as a custody and parenting time arrangement. It can include a parenting time schedule if you choose to do that, or it can be more flexible. Really, because it's an agreement between parties, you can kind of make it whatever you want it to be, as long as it's in the best interest of the child. But this one is more concrete because of two things. One, it's filed with the court. And two, in order to change it, a parent can't just one-sidedly revoke it. They have to actually file a motion with the court asking that it either be modified or revoked. And so it allows for some more formality and finality to those types of custody consent decrees. And I know that Mary is going to talk about the forms and things like that. Custody consent decree is one of those areas that doesn't have really fact sheets or forms on it. Our office has created kind of a template to use, but you'd have to kind of understand the direction that these are going, and maybe would want to have it visited by an attorney before filing it with the court, just to make sure that all of those aspects required by the statute are covered. So that one's not as common. It's usually delegations of parental authority or third-party custody decrees. So the two that we've talked about already, like I said, are when a parent is in agreement. But we get a lot of those situations, of course, where, well, what happened if the parent doesn't want to agree to give me these rights or custody, or be able to make decisions on behalf of the child? And in those cases, that's where a third-party custody case would be necessary to be initiated. In those third-party custody cases, again, you're filing a petition with the court to ask the court to give you custody of a child that's not biologically yours without the parent's permission by filing a petition. So there are two types of third-party custody cases: what's called de facto third-party custody and interested third-party custody agreements. In a de facto custody agreement, an individual has to have been the primary caretaker of that child and have lived with them for 6 months if the child is under 3 years old, or 12 months if they're over 3 years old, within the period of the last 2 years. And what's interesting about that is that it doesn't have to be consecutive, but the parents have to be out of the picture during that time. So let's say in the last 2 years, a child's been living with you for 3 months for a period of time without mom involved, and then mom took the kid back for a couple months and then came back to live with the grandparent, for example, for 6 months. As long as it's a collective 12 months or 6 months, depending on the age of the child, that still counts as de facto as far as filing for that petition. So I tell people to keep a good calendar, of that. And getting de facto is much easier with the court than any other type of custody, third-party custody action, because basically you're saying, listen, I've been acting as this person's parent for the majority of the last 2 years. The court should give me the authority to maintain that relationship. If you don't meet that de facto custodian, and let's say it's an emergency, right? We get ones where there's a death of a parent, but the other parent is incarcerated, for example, or something like that. That's more of an emergent situation. Then you can file for third party custody based on it being an interested third party. And so when you're an interested third party, you must show that the parent has either, abandoned, neglected, or disregarded the child, has caused emotional or physical harm, or other extraordinary circumstances. And those can be a wide range of things. They look at the best interests of the child, they look at siblings, they look at other important relationships, family members. They can look at a wide variety of topics to decide if it really is in the best interest of the child to allow this person petitioning to have custody of them. What I usually suggest is if somebody meets the de facto standard, that they also petition for interested third party. So you can petition for both of them at the same time. That way, if the court finds that you don't qualify based on one aspect, you can qualify potentially based on the other. So that's always one of the practice tips that I have. And there are forms that go with these that Mary can cover, or certainly we take if you qualify for our services based on our priorities, income, and assets. These are common ones that our office does take because they provide that stability to children that wouldn't otherwise have that stability, and allows those caregivers to not only obtain custody and make those decisions, but to also obtain additional public benefits. Typically, if child protection is involved in these cases, it keeps child protection from sometimes opening a CHIPS case. We've had cases where a caregiver or a parent will say, hey, we have to figure out some sort of other arrangement so that child protection doesn't start an investigation or open a CHIPS case. We've had those. So certainly this is, very, very common for a lot of the people in our community to go through. Of course, there are other wide-ranging custody actions for children that are biologically your own, but I think the people that are caring for children that aren't their own get a little stuck and need to know where to go. So there are definitely options. And as Crystal said, if people need more information after this presentation or have questions at the end, I'm happy to answer them. But that was just a very quick overview of the 3 options I usually point clients to. All right.
Thank you so much, Renee. That was a lot of information, and me being a parent myself, it's really good to know what our options are, especially like if grandparents take our kids on vacation, and what we can do to give them authority to get them medical assistance if they're out. So, for me myself, it was a good takeaway. We are going to continue to roll on, and any questions that you have, please make sure to put it in the chat, and we'll make sure to answer all of those questions at the end. Our next special guest that we have is Amy. I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself, and I'm going to also set up a slide at this time. So while she's introducing herself, I'll get that up on our screen.
Okay, can you hear me okay, Crystal?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm Amy Riccio. I am the homeless liaison with Moorhead Public Schools. So I work with students and families pre-K through 12th grade. And I have been in this role since the fall of 2000. So when I came into this role, I sort of, took on the spreadsheets of our count of homeless students and providing services, making connections with the community to help them get basic needs met. So you can go to the next slide.
All right, perfect.
And so my job is based upon a federal law. It's called the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act. It was first enacted in 1987, so long ago. It has since had a reauthorization, which was part of that Every Student Succeeds Act. And so it's pretty much stood on the basis that children who are experiencing homelessness have equal access to the same education that all of the other students attending school have. So it's pretty open-ended by saying that. A lot of basic needs, I would say, must be met under this law. So it opens the door for many things, from having free lunches to transportation, and we'll get more into the details of what that ensures for students. The bigger thing in this law is it says that every school district must have what they call an LEA, or that's your school district. So Moorhead, or it would be Hawley, or any towns, any school, Fargo, any school that, or any town that has a school district, they must designate appropriate staff as their homeless education liaison. So every school district would have someone in this role to help these families and our staff navigate their rights. Next slide, please. So who qualifies? According to McKinney-Vento, it's a sort of a three-pronged look at who would qualify as homeless. So these are individuals who lack a fixed, regular, or adequate nighttime residence. So fixed means they're likely not on a lease. They may stay with a friend, and they could be staying with this friend indefinitely. Okay. And you don't have to have all three of these qualifiers. It's one. You could have more than one, but you have to have at least one of these qualifiers to qualify under McKinney-Vento. They lack a regular place where they sleep. So they may be moving daily or weekly. And then the last one is adequate. They must have heat if it's winter. They must have water. They must be able to function and get ready for their day. So students that might be staying in a storage shed, this wouldn't be adequate. Or they may be staying in a car, this wouldn't be adequate. So those are some just simple examples. Next slide. Okay, so what does this exactly include? And here are a lot of examples. Students who are staying or housed in sort of a temporary situation due to loss of a permanent housing. They may have economic hardship. So the two factors we really go off of are economics or finances. So they've been evicted or have gotten a non-renewal, or they can't afford housing. The other one would be safety reasons. So they could be in a domestic situation and have to flee or leave their home. Children who are living in hotels, motels, trailer parks that are substandard, even campgrounds, just because they don't have any other housing to go to, that's where they're sleeping. If they live in a shelter, they would qualify. They have a primary nighttime residence that's not designated as to be a nighttime residence, like sleeping in a storage shed, or there's 12 people in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's substandard for them. Those that live in cars, abandoned buildings, even at a bus station or on park benches. Migratory children do meet these descriptions above. And the other one that really pulls McKinney-Vento apart from some of our HUD definitions is the fact that we count children and families homeless if they're staying what we call doubled up. They're staying with relatives or friends due to the fact that they can't afford housing or have an economic hardship or a domestic or a safety issue. So many of our students qualify under that doubled up category. And then on top of this, we have a category that's for unaccompanied youth. These are children that are 12 years old or younger. They're still enrolled in school, and they're not under the physical custody of their parent or guardian. So similar to what Renee was describing, these children are maybe staying at grandma's. They're doubled up, so they'd qualify under homeless, and they also don't have a parent or guardian with them. That parent or guardian is the grandparent, and unless that grandparent has legal guardianship, they would qualify for homeless services. So I have many students whose grandparent or even a friend has delegation of parental authority, or they have a power of attorney. These children still qualify under McKinney-Vento for homeless services in a school because those documents are not permanent. They could be exited at any time or ripped up at any time. Those papers are just an agreement. They're not law abiding. Next slide, please. So these students have rights when they attend school. One thing that a lot of people don't understand is once they've been identified to receive homeless services in a school, they qualify for the entire school year. So there are times when a student has left the home, their family has left, they're fleeing domestic violence, they may go to a shelter, and they may only stay at the shelter for a week, and then they get permanent housing. They get at least apartment. The child qualifies for the entire school year for homeless services. So if they were at a shelter, say in another town, say in Fargo, they were in a shelter and they initially enrolled in Moorhead schools, and then they went to the shelter because of a safety issue. They're in a different town. They have the right to stay in Moorhead schools the entire school year. If they get housed, if they get on a lease and they're in that different town, they can stay in Moorhead schools until the end of the school year. And then if they're still on that lease, they must enroll in their new school. So when they do enroll in school, they should be enrolled immediately. So we say within 24 to 48 hours, they should be starting school, even if we don't have their records. We need to get them in school. They have that right to stay in the school, which we call their school of origin, if their parent chooses, even if they move out of this area. If it's within 30 miles of our school, so say they move, I've had students move over into West Fargo. I've had students move out by DGF, Dilworth, Glen, and Felton. If it's within 30 miles of our school, we will provide transportation according to that law. That is a right of the child. So they get transportation to and from school. They have the option to participate in school programs. We have to figure out either a waiver or scholarships if they need those to waive those fees, and any other programs that they want to be a part of. If they are in need of some basic needs like food, hygiene products, laundry soap, winter gear, clothing, schools provide that as part of this law. And then they receive school meals for free. Right now, it's not an issue in Moorhead because all of our students do, but in other states, that is still the case where they would automatically receive school meals free without any paperwork. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges? So when we report our numbers, they get reported to the state and then the federal government. They always say they're underreported. And this happens because many of our families don't disclose what's going on in their situation, mostly out of fear. They don't want to be seen as needing help, or they're afraid that social services will try and take their children away. And that cannot happen because homelessness is not a reason that you can remove children from their home. Older children do not report because they fear that they're going to have to return to that unsafe home or be put into foster care. Families who are sheltering with other relatives are really hard to identify because they don't want to get their relatives or their friends in trouble. And some of our families that are identified just say, we don't need any of the help that you're offering. We still have to put them on our report as families that would qualify for homeless services. Next slide. This is just a snapshot of a federal, just sort of the numbers that they pulled from 2019 to 2020 prior to COVID. This is just sort of gives you the idea of most of the kids that are homeless are identified once they hit kindergarten, not so much in preschool, which we are trying to identify younger so we could prevent homelessness. And then it's pretty evenly across the board. The numbers in high schools dip down a little bit. A lot of that's due to children exiting school. Next slide. And this is the persistence of homelessness, 63%. So over half of the families that we identified, it was a one-time occurrence. And as you can see, there's parts that are, 2-time, 3 and 4 times. So we try to keep it down to that one time, because that we know that if it's a one-time occurrence, the likelihood of chronic homelessness would be less. Next slide. These are just statistics specific to Moorhead schools. So last year, you can see that we identified 313 students experiencing homelessness. Out of that number, 78 of them were also unaccompanied. So to have that label of unaccompanied, you have to also be experiencing homelessness first, and then we find that you're unaccompanied. And as you can see, the last 3 years that I've been here, the number has risen. I would say a lot of that is about education. Our staff go through some training to understand how to identify students, or at least flag them so that I can talk with them, as well as just the economics in our society, in our communities right now. There's lots of people struggling with housing. Next slide. And this is my contact information. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to keep that information, jot down my email or my cell. It would be the easiest way to get a hold of me. I have workers from the county, housing agencies contact me. That's totally fine, because I want to help partner with you and help kids get what they need. These are services that they should be receiving and they're entitled to. That's all I have.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amy. There, again, a lot of information that Amy was able to give us. And, one thing that I think about is the statistics that Amy had brought is just specific for Moorhead schools. So to know that this number can definitely be higher, especially even in just the Red River area, that is just, it's astounding. So it's really good to know what type of services are in the community to be able to help to stop or help out with homelessness, and also to be able to get families into different custody agreements. All righty. Thank you, Amy. We're going to go on to our next guest, and that will be Mary, and she is from Legal Services State Support. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and let Mary share her screen. Thank you for coming, Mary. Go ahead on.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me okay. Renee and Amy, I really appreciated what you both had to say. I learned a lot that I didn't know. So that is so wonderful. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm with Legal Services State Support, and we are the entity responsible for bringing you lawhelpmn.org. And lawhelpmn.org is one of our projects, and our organization, a small group, is actually a project of all the coalition legal aid services in Minnesota. So we are brought to you by Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota, among others, and they are responsible for bringing this website to life as well. And lawhelpmn.org has been around for about, over 15 years now, and we keep improving it and trying to make it better for users across Minnesota. Everything on lawhelpmn.org that I'm going to show you today is applicable statewide. If there are any regional variations or things that apply, that is noted on the site, but most of our resources are statewide resources. So no matter where you live, they're going to be applicable to you. We also advise people that when you're looking at things on Law Help, especially if you are a self-represented litigant of some type, or if you're confused about anything that you read, that you reach out to your local legal aid office. and consult an attorney if there's any questions at all. And I'll go into that a little bit more when I show you some of the resources that apply to our topic today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully it'll come up okay, it looks like. There we go. And you might see the Minnesota Judicial Branch. Gonna go over to Law Help. Crystal, do you see Law Help?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Good. Okay, everybody. So this is the homepage of lawhelpmn.org. Actually, the homepage is here. And on your homepage, oops, it looks like it disappeared for me. Did it disappear for you, Crystal?
I still see lawhelpmn.org. So if you're
Oh my
looking at your
gosh.
tabs,
Oh, suddenly I can't see anything on my screen. Don't
if
really
you
know why.
if you want to stop sharing and reshare, you definitely can.
I can't do anything right now because for some reason my screen went totally black. So I would suggest going to questions until I can figure out what happened. Thank you.
No, not a
Sorry.
problem. Are you able to unshare your screen, or you said it's completely black? You said
I
it's
have a
completely black?
completely black screen right now for some reason. So
Okay. Let's
I
see if
know.
I can, while she's doing that, let's see if I can get in and share my screen. Let's see what goes on here. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, no?
Yes,
Some
yes,
thumbs up?
yes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so you are able definitely to use the chat feature to put in some question and answer, or some questions if you would like. Otherwise, you can use menti.com. I really absolutely love this app, and I'm wanting to figure out all the different fun things I can do with it. So feel free to ask away on Menti, and everybody will be able to see the answers as well. For Menti, you can always scan the QR code, or you can go to menti.com, use the code 26080102. We did have a question that came in with one of our other audience members here. And the first question was for Amy. And so we did see the slide in regards to 2023 and earlier, but currently right now for the homeless population for 2024, what are you finding like an average? Are you seeing that the number of students have gone down or have gone up? What are you kind of like a roundabout number that you're seeing?
I currently have 275 families or students identified. Out of that 275, 75 of them are also unaccompanied. So what we're seeing, like our trend, that's a little bit high, trending higher than it was last year at this time. And again, I think part of that is because there is really, families are really having a hard time finding places to live. So families are, they can't stay where they are, and there's no, like, especially with leasing, there's not a lot out there in our area right now. I would say, especially for families when they need, a 3-bedroom or larger. So larger families have a harder time. Um, the shelters are also full, so it's very difficult for them. The part of my job, I would say, that's most challenging is working with the unaccompanied. So unaccompanied youth, many of us, when we think about that, we might think about these are, migrant children sometimes, or we might think, oh, they're mostly high schoolers, and the majority are. But I have students as young as 2 years old that have been identified because they have a sibling that's 4 and a sibling that's 6, and the 4 and the 6-year-old go to school, and they were either left at a family friend, the parent can't care for them, or the parent may be in treatment or incarcerated. And so that number seems to be growing. And I don't know if it's because we're getting better at identifying that we've always had some things going on there where we've had unaccompanied youth, but there's a lot of needs. especially with my high schoolers. They need a lot of assistance with just some basic, how to get their groceries, and if they do get housing, how to make sure that they stay housed, and they don't have somebody to call to help them do that. So they lean a lot on their school.
Perfect. Thank you for that. We had another question that had popped in as well as you were talking there. And this could be, I believe, for Renee or Amy, whoever wants to answer this one. What is the best thing for a service provider to do if they think a student is homeless? If a person is caring for a child, is there such a thing as a temporary third-party custody order?
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody wants to touch on that, that would be great.
So I'll answer part of that question, but I wanted to piggyback off of Amy and say that, for the housing, I wonder, it should be interesting to see how that trend goes in the next year or two, because Minnesota has revamped their housing laws and has a bunch of new protections as of the first of the year. Oh, Mary might be back. As of the first of the year. And so there's a lot of more things required before an eviction can move forward. And so if you have questions on that, our legal table for last month was related to the new laws. And so that should be on our website or on our YouTube channel. So it should be interesting to see if we're able to keep more people housed moving forward. That would be good. And two, for students that are homeless, especially the older ones, we get questions on emancipation as well. Minnesota doesn't have an actual statute or procedure to call a child emancipated, which causes them some problems, with renting their own apartments and getting their own agreements and making their own decisions without, a custodian. And so, that does make it difficult. So I'll let Amy answer, the best thing to do for those students. But as far as a temporary third-party custody order, unfortunately, if you don't have a parent's agreement, there isn't anything that you can do super quickly. I think that you would want to reach out to, the liaison to social services, try and get in touch with the parent and see what kind of options you can do in the meantime. Because if you serve a third-party custody action, the parent still has to be served. There's still a response time. There's still a hearing time. It still does take several months, or longer, depending on if a parent is involved, to go through and get that order. Once an order is entered, it's generally permanent, but of course the custodian could decide to dismiss that action and return custody to a parent if they chose to do that. But as far as I know, there's nothing. I guess if it was a really extreme situation, you could do what's called an ex parte request for third-party custody, but I've never in my career had one happen exactly like that. If it's an emergency case, it usually goes through child protection. But Amy can answer the first part of it. Hopefully that answered the other part.
Sure. Thanks, Renee. I would say if you're aware of a student or a family that has school-age children, to give them my contact information, or you can even follow up with me as well. We very much appreciate that, and to let them know that they're not in trouble, that there's a law out there that protects them and that they have these rights, and that there's, our job is to help them. We just want to help them stay in school and remove as many barriers as we can. So encourage them to reach out to me, or at the very least, send me an email and let me know, and I can connect with them as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy and Renee. We appreciate that. We're going to quickly go over to Mary because we want to make sure that we make enough time for her. And then if there's any other questions, feel free you can use Menti while you're thinking about it and throw in a question or throw it in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and then Mary, go ahead and you can start your screen whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. And I apologize, everybody, for dropping off like that. It was a Microsoft suddenly deciding not to work anymore. So I had to go completely off. Oh, technology. And I'm showing you about technology. Anyway, you should see my screen now at the homepage of Law Help MN. And I just wanted to quickly show a couple of things, and a couple of things I wasn't even thinking about, but because of the great information that that Renee and Amy shared, First off, I want to just direct everybody over to our self-help library, which is this navigation tab here. The self-help library is great for finding information. And as you can see, we have high-level topics. So I'm going to go over to family and take a look at the very first tile is custody and parenting time. So if you're looking for general information on custody and parenting time, this is where you want to go. And this goes back to just some of the initial comments that Renee was making about paternity, I'm sorry, about child custody, grandparents and parenting time plans, and the delegation of parental authority. So if I click on that fact sheet, this will give you should give you most of the high level general questions if you're interested in getting a delegation of parental authority. We do have a quiz that comes in at the end after you read about it, how to create one, who you can name as your attorney in fact on your DOPA, just questions about, when you should have them. And you can just open the tabs and it will show there's some of the things that Renee mentioned. You're planning on going out of the country, you're going on a vacation. Those would be reasons for getting a delegation of parental authority. So let me just go back here real quick. The paternity and child custody fact sheet just gives high-level custody things that you can look at. On every tab, what's great about the self-help library is that you can also scroll down and you'll see your fact sheets first. Then you'll see other resources under each subtopic. Do-it-yourself forms are something that we get a lot of traffic for on Law Help. Now, if you want a really intense kinship caregivers legal information, you can go to this manual, which is actually off of Law Help and on ProJustice. The great thing about all the links here's your third-party custody court forms and information. These links take you to kind of a little bit of a general page about third-party custody and establishing it. And then links you out to the Minnesota Judicial Branch and the forms that you're going to need. And when I went to these forms earlier, that's when my computer decided to quit. So hopefully that won't happen now. But as you can see, there are a lot of custody and parenting time forms. There's information about changing custody on the court's website and also establishing third-party custody of someone else's child forms. It's dense and there's a lot of information. If you feel like you need some questions about the forms themselves, I would recommend contacting a self-help center at the courts, but the courts cannot give you legal advice. So again, encourage you to, if you have legal questions and you need legal advice, you definitely need an attorney. So I would contact your local legal aid office. Another thing I just wanted to quickly show, because Amy was talking about it, was information about youth. So if you browse again to the main self-help and then go to kids, teens, and school, you'll see that we have quite a few resources for young people. Youth rights with parents and guardians. This youth living away from home, I think, really touches on maybe some of the legal issues that were, connected to Amy's talk. Youth living away from home specifically is what I'm thinking about. Youth living away from home. Youth have legal rights even if they're homeless or living away from home. So this is a really good one. And I really think our fact sheets are great. I think we have a lot of wonderful fact sheets, but of course, there are a couple of things I know you mentioned, Renee, that we don't even have fact sheets for. So again, going to a lawyer is really great. Going to your legal aid office for that is great. In addition, I want to call your attention to this booklet, which is in several subtopics under custody and under youth, but especially custody and parenting time, delegation of parental rights, is our rights and responsibilities of unmarried parents booklet. And unlike fact sheets, the booklet really goes into a lot of things, specifically about paternity, and it's organized by chapter. So you can kind of browse through and see if there's a specific question you have, how you would go about doing that. Chapter 5 is the one that I think really kind of gets into all of the very specific custody questions that people would have. So for this, for law help, I would say look around, browse around. And if you're looking specifically, if you look at some of our self-help resources and you think to yourself, I really need a lawyer, go up here to the providers and clinics. If you're not in the Alexandria or the area, the 22 counties that Legal Services of Northwest Minnesota serves. If you do, then you probably already know how to get a hold of them. But this is a great resource too for just finding your legal topic, browsing by your service area, whatever county you live in, and then finding an organization that can hopefully answer your questions. Okay.
Perfect. No, thank you, Mary. And actually, you brought up a really good topic when you were talking about the forms. It's really important that you pick out the right form and are filling out the right form when you're taking it to the courts. So the self-help clinics are huge. We currently have 5 self-help clinics in our 22 service areas, and we are growing them. So if you do have a question about a form that you're trying to fill it out and you're trying to do it yourself, make sure to bring that form to one of our self-help clinics. You can find all the information on our website, which we'll be able to show at the end. Or you're able to talk to your lawyer, bring your self-help clinic. Bring your document with you, and hopefully your attorney will be able to go over that document. Thank you very much, Mary. You provided some great information. And the other thing also is that a lot of people, when they are online, they're not necessarily sure which website is going to be the best website for the most important information. There's lots of different information out there, but we want to know what's right. So I appreciate you taking the time to show us the different documents. So that being said, we are going to jump because we do want to respect everybody's time. We're going to make sure that if you guys have questions, that you're able to have the questions answered from our special guests that we have here today. Let's see. We had one. Okay, what's this one? Oh, for Renee, if somebody wanted to come into legal aid to get services, can you quickly let us know what this intake process is, or how they can contact you to be able to do that?
Of course. So we have, there's a statewide intake line, but we also have our individual phone number, which I'm sure Crystal will share with everyone at the end. And if a client calls seeking services, we have our designated intake workers that will take the call, and they will ask, unfortunately, it's a somewhat involved process because the Legal Services Corporation has all of these rules that we're required to follow. But we do ask questions about income, family size, assets, what the legal issue is, a little bit of summary. So we do ask some intake questions, demographics, those kind of things. And if you are found to be under 200% of the federal poverty level, which, give me a second, I will tell you what that is. For a household of one, it's 18,800. Wait, no, I lied. For a household of one, under 200% right now is 30,120, or let's say a family of 4 would be 62,400 yearly. If you're under kind of that level, you will at least get to have a consult with an attorney who can, assess your legal issue, point you in the right direction, give you some advice. And then if we believe that it's a case that might, need or warrant a little bit extra help, then we can pass it on to another attorney to do a more in-depth investigation. Some cases that we take for full representation, so the ones that we go to court for, have to be under 125% of federal poverty, but occasionally we get grants and other things to be able to assist people up to 200% of that federal poverty level. So it depends, on your situation and your individual topic. For third-party custody cases right now, we are generally only taking those cases under 125. But again, if you're over that, we're at least going to give you advice that the clinics and the forms can't do. So we can answer specific advice questions. And you'll get to talk to an attorney almost always the same day that you call if you qualify. We're really good about being able to answer those questions quickly. We take pride in doing that. So we're really good about at least giving somewhere to someone a piece to start, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Our next question was for Mary. If you're not in Minnesota, can you still use Law Help MN, or is there a different website that you're able to use to get services for your state? Or I'm sorry, documents for your state, resources.
Sure, yes. That's a very good question. Law Help MN is Minnesota specific. So all of our providers are going to be for Minnesota residents. If you have a case that's venued in Minnesota, sometimes there are exceptions to that, where you may be living out of state, but maybe you have a child here or there's some other issue. I would call the 800 number for legal aid to find out specifically where, if you know the county you live in. Just go to Law Help, to that providers and clinics tab that I showed you, and put in the appropriate county. But as far as people actually residents and of other states, you might want to try going to lawhelp.org. So we're lawhelpmn.org, but go to lawhelp.org and you'll see a large nationwide map. Click on your state, and that will take you to the associated Law Help site for your state. Not all 50 states have a Law Help site, but all 50 states do have legal aid. So you'll be able to find something. However, a lot of the states have Law Help sites. They don't look exactly like ours, but that's a very good question. And you should get the legal resources that apply to your state, because with the exception of federal stuff like immigration, it's going to vary by state. So definitely make sure you're looking at the state where you live.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Mary. The next question is for Amy. So if a parent or a friend has a child that's a minor that is not theirs, who would they talk to if they needed services in the Moorhead Public Schools? Like, what would be the first thing that they would do so that they're able to work with a homeless advocate in that school or school district?
Sure, good question. So I would have them just contact me. I am the only liaison in Moorhead for homeless students.
Okay.
If they, some of our students, are more connected to, say, their school counselor, or there's a social worker in every school in Moorhead. If they are like, that's who they're comfortable with, they can talk to them and they will route that over to me, because I can get them the resources and sort of do a warm handoff. They can introduce them, because sometimes it's sort of scary, like it's somebody you don't know. So if they prefer to talk to someone in their school that they go to, that's okay. I've had referrals from secretaries, teachers, paras. I've had a referral from our janitor. So whoever they're connected to.
Perfect. No, thank you. And I just want to thank our guest for coming on today and being able to answer some questions for us in regards to third-party custody agreements and resources in the area that'll be able to assist them. If you do have further questions, I'm going to go ahead and share their information on the screen so that you'll be able to know how you're able to contact anyone if you do have some further questions on here. So let me go ahead and bring that screen up and share that. I appreciate, can everybody see the information there? Looks good. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do have Legal Table every third Tuesday in the month. So I just want to let you know to make sure to look out for some of our posts, or check your emails when you see that it's coming from Legal Services, to be able to open that up and sign up. If for some reason the link doesn't work, feel free to just message me directly and I can assist you a little bit further. I think we had a little hiccup earlier, but we are good to go now. Again, one more thanks to all of our guests. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Until next time, we will see you guys later. Thank you for attending and have a good rest of week.
Thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Thank you.